We've been using vinyl for about as long as I've been at Alnylam. I've also used it at prior companies, but it's probably going on 4 years here at Alnylam. I believe we're on the most current version. I'm not exactly sure the current release number, but pretty sure it's the most current version. Yeah, it's in a private AWS environment at the moment that Zudy's hosting for us. We're going to move it to our own AWS environment shortly. Yeah, we use vinyl quite a bit across the organization. Everything from creating apps for equity trade requests that everybody in the entire company uses if they want to get approval to trade stock. We've built an app in vinyl that routes the approval to the person's manager. We use it on the commercial side for CRM related type activities. It's really a great platform for kind of all the things that you don't quite get out of cloud based solutions. So we augment our business process quite a lot with it. It's a few things, really. I mean, I think their ability to connect to just about any data source has been really invaluable. We leverage it um, in our finance area to help facilitate the processing of purchase requisitions. So it can connect to SAP, it can connect to our contracting system. We've built kind of a guided buying application that will kind of guide people through the requisition process. Just an easier experience than a lot of other things. But the fact that it can connect to just about any data source has been a huge benefit for us. It's actually great. I mean, one of the things we are very much a company that relies quite a bit on managed service providers. Um, Zudy as a company really has great business analysts that help in the development. So when you couple that with kind of the low code development platform, the time to value is really very quick and usually inexpensive relative to many other applications. So for us, it's we benefit from certainly the managed services that Zudy offers, but the fact that it's a low code development platform really gets us value pretty quickly, which is great from an IT perspective. It really drives a lot of value with our business partners. We actually kind of helped our finance group in the management of POs so people could get some visibility in terms of how much money was left on a PO, if they needed to close a particular PO, or if they needed to request another owner for a PO. It was kind of an area. The procure to pay process for us was um, an opportunity for us, I'd say. And we use Vinyl to develop a PO management app that really help facilitate and create transparency for people on a self-service perspective. So people can, at a click of a button, can see the POs that they own, how much is left on them, and take some action on them, whether it's closing the PO or requesting a different owner. Yeah, honestly, I would say the time to value with Vinyl and the Zudy business partners is probably 30% of what it would take with traditional applications. I think, as I mentioned, I think the low code development platform really gets you to a minimal viable product very quickly, and then you can iterate on that very quickly. So I think between that and having the business partners within Zudy who to help drive a lot of those discussions and actually do the development for us has really been invaluable. Yeah, honestly, to me, that's probably the biggest benefit of the Vinyl platform. I mean, I think there are a lot of low code development tools out there, but their ability to kind of connect to just about any data source out there, if an API exists for it, they can leverage it. We've even partnered with them at times to kind of work with third party vendors to develop APIs on our own if there wasn't an API that exists for it. So we've even used it on the IT side of things just to help facilitate integration. So where we didn't necessarily build an app, we would help move data leveraging Vinyl from one system to another. If we were having trouble with the integration. So, I think the ability to connect to a lot of different data sources in an easy way has really been a benefit, both for building applications, but also for kind of our infrastructure team when they're building integrations from point to point. I mean, it really kind of makes the opportunity limitless because you can connect to just about any system and or application. What's nice about Vinyl is you can create an app, and you don't even necessarily need to take the data out of the source system. If you're creating a business process app, a business process improvement application that reads data from a variety of different data sources, you can create a front end to it and write back to those authoritative sources or the systems of record without even moving data around. So you can facilitate, the improved business process with Vinyl's ability to connect to a lot of different things and not creating multiple copies of the data, which is also a real benefit of Vinyl. Yeah, it's great, honestly. I mean, I think, and they continue to iterate and improve the application. I know in one of the more recent releases, they came up with a truly mobile app, so you can build a Vinyl application that you can deploy on mobile devices just like you would from an app store. Um, Generally speaking, I would say people pick it up pretty quickly. We tend to leverage a lot of the managed services within the Zudy team, specifically for that, just because we're pretty partner dependent. But it works well because they're able to do things so quickly. Our ability to go from concept to minimal viable product is pretty short and therefore relatively inexpensive. Yeah, it's huge, really. I mean, I think they just, between UI improvements or, um, the ability to connect to other data sources or, as I mentioned, the ability to deploy truly mobile apps. I mean, I think it's that type of functionality that continues to keep the product relevant, especially, in a relatively crowded space. I think there are a lot of people who try to be low code development platforms, but I think the Vinyl platform is very robust. And when you combine that with the managed services that they offer and their continued development of the platform, to me, it really makes them stand out. Yeah, I think it's awesome. Honestly, I mean, I think anytime you go into applications, especially low code development applications, sometimes you tend to be um, you can be restricted on how creative you can get with the UI. So I think their kind of new design, I think, really brings a lot more interest into the applications, which, the sizzle is always important, right? When people are using applications, they like it to have a sleek look and feel. So I think the constant improvement in that area is always great. Yeah, honestly, most of the apps that we deploy on the Vinyl platform, we really try to make it as low touch or low training as possible. We really try to make them as intuitive from an end user perspective. I mean, that's really the value proposition there. If you can build things quickly in a very intuitive interface that drives value for your customers, I mean, the value proposition tends to go up a lot. So I think between the UI and I think the design principles that the Zudy BAs always bring um, to the table really make that not an issue at all. They do. We leverage everything through kind of an SSO provider, and depending on people's rights, they'll either have kind of the application within the vinyl title tile within our SSO provider, or they won't. Data is encrypted, so it's really, it's a comforting experience, which is, very important nowadays. With all the security risks that are out there. Yeah, I mean, we literally have used it, as I mentioned, at a very tactical level. Maybe improving integrations. We've used it in the commercial arena for things like roster management and even for sales forces that might not fit into a traditional CRM model. We would have at times built front ends for small groups who have kind of a unique way of doing things, and we'll write back to the back end CRM database. And then we've deployed it quite a bit on the finance side of things. So there's really kind of no limit to how we've been able to leverage it. It's a great platform for business process improvement. And as I mentioned, the fact that you can connect to any data source really, provide workflows, approvals, etc., in a very timely way, has really empowered us from an organizational perspective. And the fact that we've incorporated like hierarchy information so we can route things that need manager approval within the company. It's really facilitated a lot of business processes where, sometimes the core applications only get you about 80% of the way there. For us, it really is a big deal. I mean, especially the fact that, because Vinyl can connect to just about any data source, we don't need to necessarily replicate data into a data warehouse to do reporting analytics on things. We can leave the data where it sits, and whatever the authoritative system is of record, read from it, and then write back to it, leveraging kind of a a pre-built front end that we would put together in Vinyl. So to me, it really creates a lot of flexibility in an organization that you wouldn't just get out of, off the shelf software. Those things only get you so far. And because, as we've talked about quite a bit already, the fact that Vinyl can connect to a lot of different data sources, just about any API, gives you a great deal of flexibility. So it's really, you're almost limited just by your imagination more than anything else. Yeah, I think there's a couple of aspects to it that work really well. I mean, I think, most low code development platforms really kind of enable you to get something built relatively quickly. But I think when you couple that with kind of the strong business analysts that Zudy provides, they tend to ask all the right questions when you're having those initial conversations. They quickly get to a minimal viable product that will allow the organization to react to some. So typically, it's like a week or two, um, of from initial conversation to having a minimal viable product, and then you can iterate on that. So it's, and just the fact that things are moving that quickly, I think gives the organization a great deal of comfort, because it's not like a black hole where you have a conversation, months go by before they see anything. You're not giving them anything to react to. So it's a dynamic that I think really improves the uh, customer satisfaction as well. Yeah, as I mentioned, I mean, we use it for business process improvement things like equity trade requests, where it's kind of a one-off um, need, right? But there isn't really a core application for it. Sometimes a lot of those things prior to having an application to store everything in, things can be stored in email. You have to go back and search for things. So it can improve compliance. It can improve, um, really just about any aspect of things. And you don't have to do things out of the system. A lot of the things that people do a lot of times in spreadsheets and organizations, Vinyl is a great tool to eliminate a lot of that siloed data that ends up in, on somebody's hard drive that you can't find anymore. So it's, for us, it's really been invaluable, and that's why we've used them, and I've used them for so long across both at Nylon, but even in prior companies. They have, and they're a great team to partner with. So depending on the need, if something's coming up, um, I remember an instance early on when we were first becoming a commercial company, we had a need to create an application that would send text messages to, you know, hundreds of people in the organization. If when we got approval and kind of what the next steps were, and that was literally a phone call I made, one evening, and by the next day, these guys were able to put together an application for me that we could use in a production setting. So it's that type of relationship and flexibility that the Zudy team has and the vinyl developers have. If you have a critical need, they'll definitely work with you on what it is. They don't ever you know throw up priorities or throw SLAs back in your face. I mean, they're really a true partner in terms of that type of development. Easily, it's 50%. I think realistically, it's probably closer to 60 to 70%. You can kind of deliver things quicker than you could with more traditional development frameworks, and even low code development frameworks. I think because there isn't really a limitation in terms of the number of tools or systems that Vinyl can integrate with. You're not really limited, or you don't need to find another solution or work out different integration capabilities when you're dealing with the Vinyl platform. So it's for us, it's like I said, so you're really just limited almost by your imagination than you are any of the technical capabilities of the system. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really kind of the benefit of the low code development um, frameworks, right? You don't really need to be a software developer. You can kind of work in the app and do more of configuring the application. Um, and you don't need to be a heavy duty developer. In fact, we don't really have it. That traditional development organization because of Vinyl. Yeah, for us, I think it's just made us a much more efficient company. I think it's even made us a much more compliant company. We've been able to build business processes for things that could introduce compliance risk, and being able to do that quickly and efficiently without having to um, spend a lot of money on a custom solution. Um, and the fact that it kind of plugs into our infrastructure at this point and just kind of works across a variety of um, solutions. It just works well for us. Um, I think it's dramatically positioned our time to market. That's a good question. Um, I think I would say, having been a customer of them for a long time, I think the UI early on needed improvements, but I think they've done a remarkable job kind of catching up in that regard. Um, I think they've always been great at connecting to a variety of data sources. I think they're a leader in that space for sure. Um, and they do a great job from a as I mentioned, a business analyst perspective, really helping you shape what the ultimate system is going to look like. So there really isn't a lot of areas that need improvement for sure. And I think the areas that have, they're keenly aware of and have made great strides in the recent releases. No, they were great. I mean, they hosted it initially for us. They work with us on upgrades. They're working with us, moving it from kind of a hosted AWS environment that they support for us to our own internal AWS environment. So, even on the infrastructure and more technical side of things, they're a very supportive partner. The initial stand up, I mean, Zudy's great in that regard. I mean, probably from signing contracts to having the environment stood up was probably like 3 weeks total, and that's back and forth, getting coordinating calendars and everything else. I mean, the Zudy team is great in terms of being able to stand up an environment and then helping you build on it right from there. So it's every aspect of working with Zudy and the vinyl product, is relative to most other interactions with other companies. I would say, you could shave 50 to 60% of what you would traditionally expect off of the time it takes to do things. Well, having used them before, we did. I mean, we kind of had a strategy to really help us augment limitations in our current um, cloud solutions. So where certain cloud providers where they're not going to give you the ability to change the platform, or it might take several years if they listen to your feedback. They're really, there might be real limitations in terms of what they do. I mean, we used to talk about it from most of those off the shelf type um, cloud providers or cloud applications would get you about 80% of the way there from the business process, and we would use the Zudy team and the vinyl product to really close the gap and get us the remaining 20%. Now, really, there's very little. I mean, we have people who kind of interact internally with our business partners, but the Zudy team provides the folks on the infrastructure side if you want them to host it for you. If you're going to do it yourself, obviously you would need people to kind of manage the environment, stand up the servers, etc. All the traditional things that you would think of just having to host an application internally. But if you have the Zudy team do it, you really don't need any staff, and even because, as I mentioned, they have a great managed services arm as well, where you can take advantage of their business analysts. They'll help you and sit down with your customers to help build the applications. They'll ask questions about what it needs to integrate to. They'll ask great business process questions. So the quality of the applications that you get to, you get to a high quality application in a very short time frame and at a relatively low cost, really without um, any measurable incremental headcount. I mean, certainly you need people to kind of interact with the business, and you need probably people to kind of help point them in the right direction in terms of what APIs to get to or what data to get to. But I wouldn't say we've added any real headcount in support of or because of bringing the vinyl application into the environment. I mean, we really have, depending on kind of um, how you want to answer that question, we have people who are users of vinyl apps. Everybody in the organization uses it, from, um, you know, equity trade requests to some general onboarding HR type experience. So we have a very broad user base with the vinyl applications. On the IT side of things, the more traditional side of things, we probably have two or three people. One person kind of more on the integration side of things uses it, and then we have people kind of who are business facing, interacting with business partners to drive and build a lot of the applications. So it kind of depends on how you define using vinyl, but as consumers of the applications, really just about everybody in the company does in some capacity. Uh, Really, it's been amazing, honestly. I mean, I don't know if it's the um, how they manage and control their releases, but we have not had situations, and it becomes important as you can imagine with having very large uh, communities of users using the system. If everybody in the company is using the system, those systems become mission critical if they're down, and we've really had no outages that weren't unplanned. Certainly here at Alnylam. Um, and it doesn't mean you don't iterate on applications or work on improvements, but in terms of unplanned outages, it's been very small. It's interesting because the challenge we have is almost managing, because vinyl can be used across a variety of different use cases. Just about any potential integration can be accommodated with vinyl. And because people are really only limited to their imagination, sometimes we have to manage kind of the number of things that people want to create or build using vinyl. Sometimes it's you don't want to just create things for the sake of creating it. So scalability wise, we haven't had any issue. We have literally everybody in the company is a user of the application. There's been no issues there in terms of simultaneous usage or any of those types of things. And really, there hasn't been a use case that's been too big or too small. And we've done everything from mini CRMs for very kind of niche field facing teams to, as I mentioned, like facilitating our procure to pay process. The usage has kind of been organic. I think as more and more people become aware of its capabilities, the capabilities of the Vinyl platform and the capabilities of the Zudy business analyst, the growth has kind of been organic. I mean, we haven't necessarily decided to scale it, but it's global for us. We use it. We're a global organization. We use it in the other regions around the world as well. So it's not like we say we're going to increase it by 50 or 60% each year, but we probably that's probably about what the increase has been. But it's been all organic based on demand and the value that people see. We do. They've been super helpful in just about every capacity, and a lot of times, it'll be challenges. We'll go to them if we have an interesting challenge connecting to a particular vendor. Um, yeah, but their support model has been great, and I think even more from an overall partnership. I mean, if there's anything we need, we can certainly have the conversation with them, and they're very open to facilitating getting it done for us. Not really, not certainly not here at Long Island. Um, and I've probably been a Zudy customer for going back 6+ years, I would say at this point. I think prior to using Zudy and the Vinyl platform, it was a little bit more of your traditional development frameworks that I would be involved in. We have, and again, I think I think it's a crowded space. I think the Zudy and the Vinyl platform has been it's kind of led the way in this space. And I think to me, when I compare it to other solutions, there's probably two things that in my mind kind of stand out and why I am always drawn back to the Zudy partnership. But I do think their ability to connect to just about any data source is huge. I think if you have a platform that can't connect to things, I think it really limits the usage of that particular platform. But then I also think the managed services that you can leverage from Zudy is huge as well, right? A lot of times when you're standing these things up, you need support, you need strong BAs, you need other things. it takes a while to get adoption if you think your team is just going to pick up a new platform and leverage it and be really good at it. And a lot of times, it's that, the inability to deliver something quickly will tend to make people not use it the next time. So I think, for me, it's those two things that has always, made Zudy stand out. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's great. I mean, I think it's, we've kind of been working with them on a model where you're kind of not limited. You pay for the license, and then you can use it as much as you want. So for us, it's been very cost effective. We certainly pay also for the managed services help that we get from them, but to me, it's a very effective cost model. Licenses are relatively inexpensive, and then you kind of pay by the drink in terms of the managed services that you're going to need. So for us, it's been great. I mean, and we figure out where we want to apply those services, and we try to be pretty diligent about managing the costs there. No, I mean it literally we have the license, which gives you kind of unlimited use, and then we kind of budget for anticipated services that we'll leverage with them in terms of leveraging their managed services team to help build the apps and kind of work with our business partners. But beyond that, no, there's zero hidden costs, which is great. We have. I mean, ROI is always a hard thing to calculate, but just general improvements, and even if you how do you put an ROI around being more compliant, right? I mean, I think it's just things that you have to do, and if you don't, then you get into a lot of trouble potentially. So for us, that's where the ROI comes in. I mean, certainly time to market is a huge value, but I would say doing things in a more compliant way is probably where you'd really say the value is. Yeah, I mean, having been a customer of theirs, the Zudy team for a really long time. I mean, I think um, it's always about adoption. Anytime you're introducing new technologies like this into an organization, people don't really quite understand what it is. So you try and get your quick wins, and so people can kind of see the value of it. And then, once you kind of get past that, then I think you have the other lesson of how do you control growth, right? Because you can connect to a lot of different things, and people are very eager to, um, find solutions to their problems. Sometimes it can be, sometimes you have to manage what you're going to do, and when you're going to do it, right? Because no one has limitless resources. So, we kind of internally establish a prioritization mechanism where we look at kind of what's happening, and where we should prioritize certain requests over others. I think it's twofold. I think there are a lot of low code development platforms out in the market today, right? And I think you're going to see that a lot of them have value. I think, to me, certainly the number of data sources that they can integrate with is a huge piece of the decision making factor. But then I think it's also kind of the model, right? It's like I've tried implementing tools like this in other companies, and it's not always easy to get adoption, even to get internal people comfortable with it and to use it, right? And if you can have someone who will partner with you in that journey, and get your internal teams comfortable with, and more importantly, get the business comfortable with the applications you're delivering, I think the adoption and the value proposition goes way up. So it really isn't just the tool; it's really about the whole partnership, selection, etc. As you go through the process. I wouldn't be with them this long if they weren't, at least a strong 9 for me. I mean, they're great. I mean, no, I wouldn't give anybody necessarily a 10, but I'd certainly give them